evening and a very warm welcome to Soul Soundtrack. A couple of weeks ago I met up with Andy Bruce, who's an elder and a member of Ellen Parish Church, and we had a chat in his garden about life and faith and music and running. But we started off by chatting a little bit about whether we think that we are related or not. So as far as I know, we're not related. Although we're Bruces, I think most of my Bruces come from Edinburgh or England or something. Do you know where your Bruces come from? What's the background?
Yes, I do. Well, you never know. If we go back far enough, we might be related with Robert the Bruce and all that stuff. My mum came from a large family in Sandhaven, which is just a couple of miles up the coast from Fraserburgh. Mm-hmm. They were a family of bakers. My dad came from around here in Ellen. He was one of 13 of a family.
Oh wow!
He was a farm servant,
mm-hmm.
And then in his latter life he worked in the county council.
Uh-huh.
He cut the grass at the side of the roads.
Oh, right.
Mum and Dad were married very late. I was their only child.
Mm-hmm.
My mum died, over 40 years ago. On Christmas Eve.
Oh dear.
And I think I was aged 21 at the time, and
uh-huh.
my dad not long after that. Although I've never met any of my grandparents, I think I got my name from my dad's dad. I remember Dad telling me the story once. My granddad was called Andrew Ferguson Bruce, and I have no middle name of Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Dad drove a Massey Ferguson tractor at the county council when he
uh-huh.
cut the grass at the side of the road. So I think he was not too sure about giving me his dad's middle name,
uh-huh.
just in case maybe his council colleagues took the mickey.
Thought you were named after a tractor.
Yes, it would not have been a good result.
No. And so, growing up, what part did faith play in your life, if any?
Well, it's a very good question. I think probably church played a greater part in my growing up years on faith. My folks attended the Plymouth or Close Brethren. Maybe like a lot of younger folk in these days, you attended whether you liked it or not.
Yep.
There was a lot of issues in the Brethren around the late 60s, early 70s. I found that quite a difficult period.
Mm-hmm.
I think being an only child also, and being different from a lot of kids around you, is partly due, I guess partly the Brethren piece contributed to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it was probably much later in life that my faith began to play a significant part for me.
Mm-hmm.
Much of the grounding, I guess, in the early years, you realise at a point later become pretty significant though.
Mm-hmm.
My folks were pretty poor, pretty plain, pretty straightforward, struggled to make ends meet, but they were very dedicated to their church, and I guess that kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
I find now that I have a huge admiration for that.
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes, and this is possibly the old man coming out in me, that there seems a lot less time in your day-to-day events now to think about faith.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps, of course, it's just that people take a lot less time to think about things like that, as there's usually heaps of contending stuff that
uh-huh.
people want to do.
Aye, there's so much stuff that
Yeah.
crowds round our whole
Yeah.
lives that we
Yeah.
maybe don't have the space to think about faith and about those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
Was there a moment when you were growing up that where you had a sort of notion of, well, I'm going to take on faith for myself, or I'm not? You said that growing up was kind of churchy, but
Yeah,
you kind of took faith.
So. I think
on.
I think I was probably into my 40s, if I'm being honest,
Okay.
before that really happened.
Yeah.
And it was probably as a result of, I kind of went back to Church of Scotland here in Ellen, probably when I was late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know why I went back, because Matthew Rogers asked me to, I guess.
Yeah.
And it kind of grew from there.
Aye. And so often it seems to be that somebody's asked somebody, and that's what's done it. But that doesn't always mean that the faith sticks. Somebody can actually do something.
No, that's just really the trigger point for, I guess, getting back to it.
Yeah. So your first choice of music goes back to those Brethren days. It's Well With My Soul, which was written by Horatio G. Spafford. Has quite the story behind it, and we've featured it in a soul soundtrack before, but not in this way. So tell us why you chose that song. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot. I'm not very musical. Those who know me would tell you that. But this particular choice would be very high up my hit list, if not top, especially in relation to my faith. And as you say, it goes back to the Brethren hymn book. I'm not even sure it's in CH4. I guess I really have to give an outline of the story to be able to talk about what it means and the basis of the hymn being so important. I guess I just simply find it very difficult to get my head around Horatio Spafford's faith. This guy was born, I think, in early 1800s. He was a prominent American lawyer, senior partner in a large law firm. He was also a Presbytery Presbytery church elder. In 1860s, he married a girl called Anna Larsen from Stavanger in Norway, which will be known to many of the people who are involved in the oil industry here. I think he was also a bit of a property tycoon. He got himself involved in property, and in 1870s, a decade after he was married, a lot of his property investments got destroyed in the Great Fire of Chicago. Couple of years after the devastation of this fire, he had planned to go to Europe with his family. He had 4 lovely daughters. He would go with them on a trip, but late business demands determined that he would not go, and his wife and daughter went on before him. They were actually going to see one of his pals, Dwight Moody, Moody and Sankey fame. And while crossing the Atlantic on a steamship, I think it was the Ville de Havre or something like that, a French boat, I think, it ran into an iron steamship, and 220 odd people were lost at sea.
Goodness.
Including all of Spafford's 4 daughters.
My word.
So his wife Anna survived the tragedy. When she arrived in England, she sent a telegraph to her husband saying pretty much, saved alone. So Spafford basically got on the next boat, sailed to England to join his wife, and that's when he wrote this song, It Is Well With My Soul. The story doesn't totally end there. After sinking the ship, Anna gave birth to another 3 kids. The oldest of them was Horatio, who then died of scarlet fever, I think it was, aged 3.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So this kind of final tragedy, if you like, came after a decade of financial loss and personal grief, I guess. Interestingly, it's reported that it came with a lack of support from their community church. I'm not quite sure what that meant, but I found interesting to read. And this began Horatio's philosophical journey, I think, away from what had been very much material success for him. He was obviously a very rich man, towards a lifelong spiritual pilgrimage almost, and he died of malaria, I think, in late 1800s. He had since moved to Jerusalem from the States, and you see his body buried in, I think it's Mount Zion Cemetery.
Oh, I see.
So a very very interesting story. I can't think beyond the strength of this guy's faith. You know, how did he manage to write a song, this hymn, passing the point over the ocean where his 4 girls had drowned. This is, for me, such an inspiration. Spafford effectively, I guess, wrote this hymn as a testament that he, to the salvation he found in Jesus through the good and bad times in life. So the first line of the song, when peace like a river, and peace does not mean that everything is always going well. It means that despite the ebb of flow of circumstances, and I'm sure Horatio's life is a good example, that kind of peace washes over you, almost like a river is kind of how I think about it.
Yeah.
But I just find the story mind-blowing, to be honest.
It's an incredible story. It's an incredible story of faith when clearly most of society would have thrown their hands up in horror and said, "There's no God. God is not there. That why would he do that?" And turn away from faith, but to turn towards faith and to be able to kind of outpour it in that way.
And to be able to do that, and I've endured nothing remotely like that in my life, and people find it tough, but I just think it's an amazing testimony to.
Is it because you've not experienced that kind of stuff in your life that then makes that song more inspiring to you, or how does that?
It's a good question. I think perhaps it is. I think to have something that obviously is a part of history and is recorded the way it is, I just find that, I'm sure, like us all, he had his ups and downs, but to be able to write that song, if you go look at the words, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing song, which we're going to hear just now, and we'll be able to listen to and see some of those words. So let's hear it just now.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control, that Christ has regarded my helpless estate, and hath shed his own blood for my soul. It is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul. My sin, oh the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin, not in part, but the whole. It is nailed to the cross,
So what kind of aspirations did you have growing up? Thinking about that, what did you want to be? What did you want to do?
Well, I really had no idea. Not a lot. I had no real
Cut the grass
aspirations.
beside the roads.
That would be it.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really have any. I pretty much just fell into stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess being an only child and describing some of the circumstances I talked about earlier, I kind of fell into work, and that became my thing. That's the only way I can really describe it. I learned how to work hard. I joined the bank. I got up early in the morning and delivered butteries for Ethan Bakery before the bank. I worked in the evenings in the Buchan Hotel usually, so it was a pretty full-on day. I guess some would say I became a workaholic. And I had really no idea what I wanted to be, and I probably still ain't sure about that today, if I'm honest, from a career point of view, that is.
Yeah, but you've gone, obviously something has pulled you towards business and kind of.
Yeah.
My understanding of what you do is take businesses and that are maybe not doing so well and try and make them work.
I guess that's
better.
part of it. Goodness knows how that happened.
Yeah.
I honestly can't answer that.
Yeah,
It just happened. It wasn't planned.
There's one decision leads to another decision, and you find that you're there.
Yeah.
Where-
Yeah. That's right.
Has faith worked in that way as well? Have you did you, I suppose, have any kind of plan? How has your faith changed over the years? Have you kind of gone, well, this is it, and then followed a straight path, or ups and downs, that kind of stuff?
I guess it's probably worth, in you're asking the question, it's probably worth, I guess in human terms, I set out eventually I kind of achieved what I set out to do. It was inevitable after the with the oil industry coming along. I left the bank, I went to the oil industry, I get made redundant 2 years later. That's quite close to the point Mum died, which wasn't a great result because I then wondered if I should have left the bank and all that sort of stuff. Luckily I got a job with BP, was there for 10 years, met a guy when I then worked in Seaforth Maritime, and I guess our motivation was similar in that we didn't particularly want to work for larger organisations. We perhaps arrogantly thought at the time we could do better, as you often do at that age and stage.
Absolutely.
So you kind of have to pitch up and put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So we did. As you said, we kind of embarked on buying some fledgling companies, some pretty well going companies backed by private equity, and the rest is history. So from a career point of view, I guess it worked out okay. And I guess as part of the oil industry, I got to see a lot of the world courtesy of the oil industry almost, which broadened my perspective from a whole number of ways. I suppose in terms of faith and how it's developed, I think probably the last 10 years has been the most significant. About 5 years ago, when I stopped working full time, I kind of started doing a course, started studying a bit of religion and theology at Aberdeen Uni, which of course you know about. And this has helped me, I think, get more perspective in life. I think travelling has also helped. I've done a bit of travelling on kind of charitable front as well. Earlier this year, went to Ecuador with a few guys from the Baptist Church. It was great to be able to help folk, and it was also great to have a bit of fellowship and discussion around the tea table of an evening. I guess I'm always doing stuff. I'm not good at sitting down. I don't have a bucket list. I don't do bucket lists. I guess the important things in my life now is family and faith, is probably how I would summarise it in 2 words. Very proud of my family. A boy, 2 girls, daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren, all absolutely gorgeous. But I would probably have not been able to do any of the workaholic bit without a very understanding wife.
She
At
paid
least
you
said
to
about
say
that, the
that.
better, probably. She did. Faith is a little harder to quantify, I guess. But you kind of know it exists. I find it kind of very difficult to quantify. You know, I think if a house builder had built the world, it would have fallen down by now. So, I'm inquisitive. Do you go with science? Do you go with God? Why not both? I struggle probably to understand why people don't take these things seriously and don't really care to find out about them. That it just seems terribly short-sighted.
Yeah.
You know, if God is real and he's calling out to you, as I believe he's done to me in some shape or form through most of my life, then somehow you have to answer that call. You know, all the wealth of Horatio Spafford ultimately meant nothing to him, it would appear. He kind of renounced it, moved away from his material success fundamentally to help other folk. And I think that's got an awful lot to do with what it's about.
Yeah. So you've been fairly driven then in your work life, even if you didn't have a necessarily a plan. You've been pretty driven to get to where you've got to workaholic and those kind of things. Do you approach other aspects of your life in a similar way? Is it the same with faith? Is that what made you go towards the studying?
Because that's what drives me mad. Yeah. Yes, I think probably that's a personality flaw. Certainly, some would say. You know, I like to do things in depth. I'm pretty extreme, I guess, in the stuff that I do. So it is. I like to try and do things the best I can.
Yeah. The next song is a hymn that's written by John Bell and Graham Moll called "Inspired by Love and Anger," which kind of brings in I suppose an element of what you're talking about to do with being abroad and helping and working in kind of charity things. Is that tell us a bit about why you chose this? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very different hymn for what I was brought up with. For me, this hymn in my life today gets to the very heart of things. You know, I guess most people would know that I kind of I struggle with church. I struggle with organised religion. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, as you know, you were suggesting. I want to do things the best I can, and I like to see everyone else doing the best they can. But here in this hymn, you know, is one place that church often delivers, helping others. When you look closely, you see the numbers of folk who go quietly about their business in church, around church, helping other folk. For me, this song presents Jesus as a very, very human person in his feelings and his compassion. He introduces impatience and anger, which for me is very welcome into what I think we often try to, you know, it's a great counter to our sterile Christian ways sometimes, I think. I think it just does it for me. This hymn is about a living God. It's about our response to God. It's about mission and service. It's about the life and ministry of Jesus. It's about justice and peace. It's about all the stuff that I think at the point I've reached in life that means stuff. For whatever reason. And I often just think about a kind of short, very short Mark's gospel piece that says, "For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." Kind of captivates, you know, the whole essence of the song for me. This song is a call to action, you know, to rise up and do what you can to help others. That's what it means to me, really.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant song.
It's a fantastic song, and there's almost a sort of when I hear it, there's like almost a kind of juxtaposition between the because it's written to a fairly tuneful folk tune, but the words are really raw,
powerful.
and so there's almost that bit that you get as well. So
no, it's a brilliant song.
Let's hear "Inspired by Love and Anger."
Inspired by love and anger, disturbed by need and pain, informed by God's own bias, we ponder once again. How long must some folks suffer? How long can few folk mind? How long dare vain self-interest turn prayer and pity blind? From those who are ever victims of heartless human greed, their cruel plight composes a litany of need. Where are the fruits of justice? Where are the signs of peace? When is the day of prisoners and dreams find their relief? From those forever shackled to what their wealth can buy, the fear of lost advantage provokes the bitter cry. Don't query opposition, don't criticize our wealth, don't mention those exploited by politics and stealth. To God who through the prophets proclaimed a different age, we offer its indifference, its agony and rage. When will the wrongs be righted? When will the kingdom come? When will the world be generous to all instead of some? God asks who will go for me, who will extend my reach, and who, when few will listen, will prophesy and preach, and who, when few bid welcome, will offer all they know, and who, when few dare follow, will walk the road I
So if that song is a call to action, and is something that God is, or you feel that is what God is calling us to, and it's a song that we sing in church. Why do you think the two things come together? Why did the two things not come together? What would the church look like if the church lived out inspired by love and anger?
That's a great question. I mean, you never know what people have on in their lives, but I often think to myself, if we really believed all this stuff, we would be up closer. We would be in more deeply.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to make an assessment on that, but if this is life for us, then it's so important. So we should be able to. But I guess we're human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's that side to it as well.
Yeah, and we always have to balance.
Yeah.
All of those things. Although there is the things that Jesus talks about putting God first and following that calling, which is kind of what I suppose Horatio Spafford in the other hymn was eventually doing.
Yeah.
Where do you see that kind of stuff lived out the closest? Have you seen anywhere that you would think that's actually manifest, or is it just completely aspirational? Is it one of those sorts of things?
It's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess going back to my days of youth, which has an impact on you. Obviously, my days growing up, the one thing the brethren did very well is they were very dedicated, to what they did.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of rubbed off me in a sense.
Uh-huh.
But I then think that's church,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to faith, and I know they're linked clearly. But I think sometimes you have to find what drives you, which is an important part of how you go forward.
Yeah, yeah. Has being when you were in Ecuador, do those experiences change how you view faith? What was it like coming back? Did your mind change about anything or?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about when we were there was about how, when we go back we're going to be different and we're not going to be sucked up by the Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, inevitably, you get sucked up by the Hoover. You didn't expect it in the particular way that it happened.
Well, no, you couldn't have predicted this.
But it's, it does make you think about, the kind of standard response would be thankful for what you've got, but most of the world is living, closer to the way that Ecuador lives than the way we do. So I struggle to jump quickly to, thank goodness we're okay.
Yeah,
That doesn't seem quite right for me.
No, because the balance is therefore off.
Yeah, it is.
And if God is on the side of the poor, then the world is not as God would want it to be.
Definitely, I don't think it's as God would want it to be.
No.
I think the human piece has taken us there.
Yeah. On a completely different subject, you have said to me in the past that running is what keeps you sane, or running is what keeps you not from killing people.
Yeah. I mean, I think I often meet God when I'm running, or walking, or in the hills, or simply just in nature. But because running, you have to kind of focus because you have to breathe.
Yeah.
So your mind becomes quite concentrated, I think. So I think that kind of draws me to think about God. I've probably, I don't know, run for probably about 45 years, and it's very much been part of my life. I've kind of used it, I guess, to be a counter to sitting behind the desk in business. I like running alone. Occasionally I'll run with others, but it can be a bit of an addiction as well.
Yeah.
You have to, maybe a more socially acceptable addiction than some things, but it can be an addiction or an obsession.
Yeah. At least it's something that keeps you reasonably healthy, and
it does.
In that way, other people turn to other things.
Yeah.
Do you think that running gives you? You said kind of early on, you're saying that it's almost the old man speaking, where you don't feel like life gives enough space, or not necessarily enough space, but life maybe doesn't give the space to consider God. Does running kind of give you that space? Is that
totally? Yeah. Totally. It because you have no interruptions. I don't stop for people by and large. I just keep going.
Yeah. Not unless you're on your cool down.
No, I'm happy to do it then.
Yeah.
But no, definitely. That's absolutely definitely.
Yeah. And is it the seeing creation thing that's God, or is it the space thing, or is it just a combination of everything?
Both. It gives me time to have my own conversation with God, but I think nature is spectacular. I think we miss it all the time. From plants to our bodies to how I recognise you as an individual amongst billions of people. It's. But we just fit into all these things nice and neatly and just accept them for what they are. I think they're absolutely wonderful, most of them, but we don't see them day to day.
Aye, and there is that, I suppose, that bit where we get so used to seeing those things that it takes a kind of inquisitive mind, or a mind to think below that, beneath that.
I think it's pretty important stuff to think about.
Yeah. And is that the kind of stuff that gives you hope? What kind of looking forward, looking beyond lockdown back into normal life? Even if we were sitting in normal life, we were having the same conversation. What gives you hope? We can always find the stuff that annoys us. But what gives us hope?
I guess I kind of thought this morning, and it's not thought through, but I guess. What gives me hope is thinking about God. I think what keeps faith intact is Jesus. If that makes any sense. I guess I kind of like going back to basics. For me, faith is the basic element that you begin with to have a relationship with God. You don't need much to start.
No.
It's kind of an assurance that the stuff revealed in the Word is true. Even though you can't see them. Folks need to look to prayer beyond that, which can be a very difficult thing to genuinely do. But I think I don't have any problems with the unseen part.
Okay.
It doesn't. I think it's Hebrews or something that talks about faith being the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen.
Yeah.
I don't feel I've got a problem with that kind of part of it. I guess I consider really having a very privileged life, very different life from my parents. But it's hugely important now to work out a way to help people and to help each other. Go back to the hymn, inspired by love and anger. Read the words for yourself. They are, as you said earlier, they are so powerful.
Yeah.
I might have put a different tune to it, but that would just be me. But yeah, ultimately, love is what it's all about. It has to be.
Yeah. And I suppose there is those two aspects of we don't often talk about the anger side of things being something that inspires, but anger can often be the thing that drives folks forward.
Yes,
as we're seeing in the world
it does. And I sometimes run with music, but not often. When you run with music, you inevitably listen to the same tracks over and over again, and it's quite an interesting thing. When you hear tracks over and over, you hear that. For me, it's a bit like reading the Bible. In time, you see very different things, enhance things, change things.
One of the things behind liturgy is if you repeat the same stuff over and over again, it brings out different things in it. So it's a similar kind of thing. And there's a couple of songs that we're not allowed to play for copyright reasons that tell us a wee bit. Is that are those on your running playlist?
Yeah, no, they are absolutely on my running playlist. I mean, one is very, very simple. It's by the rock band Queen, and one of their songs is called "It's a Miracle," and I wouldn't say anything more than that. Go read the words. Go listen to the words. It's very, very interesting when you hear them over and over and over again. And the other one, or the other group of songs really that I particularly like, is Whitney Houston's tracks from the film The Bodyguard.
Would not have pegged you for a Whitney Houston fan.
No, many people would not have done that. Heavy rock is my general thing because it goes well with running.
Yep.
But I didn't know until fairly recently that Houston sang the Jesus Loves Me track in her last performance a couple of days before she died.
Oh, really?
And it's worth having a look at some of her live performances on YouTube or of Jesus Loves Me. It's a very interesting in some of her live concerts. And I guess, you know, despite years of battling drug addiction and all sorts of stuff, Houston was pretty vocal about her faith throughout, I think. You know, much has been written about the spiritual battles in her career, but, you know, she was raised in a Christian family. Unfortunately, the young Houston experienced drink, drugs, sex, racial prejudice, the whole show from what I can gather, and that was before she reached her teens. And she kind of seemed to live with her mother, Sissy, I think she was called, who was from a very churchy background, but as far as I can gather was kind of, I don't know, dominated by fierce love, let's say, is probably the best way to put it. But I just think her voice is incredibly strong and pure. Her early songs in church were songs about God's love, you know. She never, or it's reported that she never seemed to find this love for herself. But we don't know. She seemed conflicted between the churchy Whitney of her youth and another Whitney. But I guess for me this just docks to each of us, you know. We all have this inner life bit, and we all have our public persona, and usually they're very different. I just think, you know, we need to be honest sometimes with each other and fill the gaps and work to a more holistic sense of self. Everyone has their issues. No one is alone. I just happen to have landed on a more socially acceptable addiction called running. But I guess, you know, what I think about this, or what I take from that is, I should never judge people too readily. Because I don't know how they got there. Often, of course, you do judge people too readily because we're human. But we shouldn't.
And we live in a society that almost prizes that kind of judging. We have so many programs that lead people to that, and so it's we almost can find ourselves doing it before we really realise, just because it's almost socially acceptable to do that.
Which is not right.
No, and there's so many, I think, so many stars, famous folks that have had to battle a whole lot of stuff.
Which people don't see.
No. And Thin Lizzy is a
oh yeah, that's a running.
That's the running.
That's a running track. The live and dangerous album. There's not a lot there I can relate to, but there is some bits and pieces. Again, kind of interesting, not hugely dissimilar to Whitney Houston. You know, lead singer Phil Lynott died young. Drugs, I think, and all the rest of it. But you just do. That's the real pounding the pavements songs, because they're all heavy rock.
Kind of spurs you on and keeps you.
It does.
Keeps you going with that.
It does.
Well, we're going to put those songs up on a playlist that folks can have a listen to, and you might find people running round laps round Ellen listening to your playlist.
Hopefully not.
Well, thank you so much, Andy, for joining us, for being interviewed for Soul Soundtrack. It's been, as always, a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and to you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thanks, Andy, for joining me for that chat. Tomorrow evening I'm joined by Tina McKinnon, who lives down in Musselburgh and is the mum of Rory as well as 3 other boys. Tina has come up and helped with MegaQuest and Guardians Holiday Club for the last 3 or 4 years. I think she led the one that Nicola was off of maternity leave for. And so we had a chat about her faith and about the music that inspires her and about her life and some of the stuff that that her family have gone through. The internet was really flaky the day that I spoke to her, so I think that the conversation took place over 3 different venues. So that's why it all changes at various points. But I hope that you're able to join us tomorrow evening at 7:15 or on Catch Up to hear me chatting with Tina. Have a good evening. See you very soon.